As dawn broke on December 2, 1805, over the fog-shrouded fields off Austerlitz, Napoleon Bonaparte's silhouette loomed large. Behind him, his 68,000-strong army was ready to face 90,000 Russian and Austrian troops. The enemy called him the Corsican Fiend, and they were convinced they had him cornered. But Napoleon, ever the hunter, devised a master stroke. Feigning weakness, he abandoned the Pratzen Heights, baiting the Allies to surge onto the high ground. As the sun pierced the fog, his trap snapped shut. His reserve struck, splitting the Allied center. By nightfall, 36,000 Allied troops lay lost. The Third Coalition was shattered, cementing Napoleon's myth of invincibility. Austerlitz showcased the very best of Napoleonic genius, fueling the myth of invincibility that seemed to follow him wherever he went. In today's episode of the Infographics Show, we'll uncover the secrets behind Napoleon's tactics that left his enemies reeling, and the reasons why for so long he seemed utterly unbeatable. Act 1. The Formative Years. Napoleon Bonaparte stormed onto the stage of history like a force of nature, forging a path through chaos and reshaping Europe's destiny with an iron will. From the breathtaking victories in Italy to the audacious campaigns in Egypt, his military genius and unrelenting ambition crushed all who dared oppose him, leaving a trail of stunned and shattered empires. Napoleon first tasted victory during the Siege of Toulon, where his astute tactical mind forced British forces to retreat. But it was the Italian campaigns of 1796 and 1797 that catapulted Napoleon to new heights of fame and power. In battles like Arcole and Rivoli, he used swift maneuvers and surprise attacks to shatter numerically superior Austrian forces, paving the way for French dominance in northern Italy. These campaigns marked Napoleon as a military prodigy among France's more established generals. In 1798, he took his army to Egypt in a daring gamble for glory. Landing near Alexandria, he crushed the Mamluks at the Battle of the Pyramids. But the British, led by Nelson, annihilated his fleet at Aboukir Bay. Stranded in a foreign land, he turned adversity into opportunity, merging war and discovery before returning to France a year later. He found his home country in turmoil, the people once again dissatisfied with their revolutionary government. Arriving in Paris, he moved in the shadows, rallying allies in secrecy. On November 9th, he struck with military precision. He dissolved the government, silenced opposition, and declared himself first consul, the supreme ruler of France. The coup was a masterstroke of timing and audacity, transforming a discredited general into a political titan. France now belonged to Napoleon, and his vision of empire stretched far beyond its turbulent borders. In the early 1800s, Napoleon forged his legend through lightning campaigns and decisive victories. At Austerlitz in 1805, he shattered the Russian-Austrian alliance with flawless deception and timing. In 1806, he crushed Prussia at Jena and Auerstedt, annihilating its army in a single day. His genius lay in speed, unity of command, and unrelenting aggression. Just a year later, he struck again in Poland, defeating the Russian army at Friedland and securing peace at Tilsit. By 1810, Napoleon's dominance seemed absolute. His presence electrified his soldiers, who followed him as if invincible, while his enemies quaked at his name. Yet, even as his star soared, weaknesses began to form. Early life. Napoleon's journey to becoming one of history's greatest generals began far from any battlefield on the serene island of Corsica in 1769. Born into a modest, noble family as the second of 8 children, Napoleon spent his early years in Ajaccio, a town surrounded by azure waters, sun-soaked beaches, and rugged mountains. His childhood was marked by the unique blend of ambition and adversity that would yield a fiercely resilient character. He saw firsthand the struggles of a land torn between French and Italian influences. It was a complex reality that left the Corsicans, including the Bonaparte family, wary of French rule. Yet it was in France where Napoleon's ultimate allegiances would lay. Napoleon's father, Carlo Bonaparte, was connected enough to secure his son's admission to the prestigious Royal Military Academy at Brienne in mainland France. At just 9 years old, Napoleon was thrust into a world of aristocratic privilege. He was immediately singled out for his thick Corsican accent and modest origins. Napoleon honed a sharp sense of pride and a fierce ambition to excel, despite ridicule from his peers for his fiery temperament and small stature. Unlike his wealthier, more polished classmates, Napoleon took his studies seriously. He was seen as intelligent yet reserved, absorbing military theory with a voracious appetite. He particularly enjoyed subjects that required precision and problem-solving skills that would become his forte. Life at Brienne was disciplined and unforgiving. The academy adhered to a strict curriculum designed to instill discipline in the future officers of the French army. Napoleon found solace in his studies, immersing himself in books on history, mathematics, and the art of war. Fascinated by the lives of Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar, he grew determined to carve out a place for himself amongst them. He would soon get his chance. Graduating from Brienne in 1784, he was admitted to the École Militaire in Paris, the foremost military academy in France. At just 15, he was among the youngest cadets in France. His sharp mind and intense focus helped him rise quickly through the ranks. Napoleon threw himself into the rigorous study of artillery, a meritocratic branch of the military that required precision, calculation, and deep strategic thinking. Despite struggling financially, his family could barely support him. His instructors marveled at his dedication. He poured every ounce of energy into mastering the technical aspects of artillery, which would later become one of his greatest strengths on the battlefield. Incredibly, he finished the artillery course at the École Militaire in a single year. It was an incredible feat considering only 3 of 58 classmates were younger than him. Known as one of the hardest courses at the school, it demanded intelligence and discipline, traits that would form the foundations of Napoleon's genius. By the time he completed his training, the winds of revolution were sweeping across France. Centuries of monarchical rule, nobility, and tradition were being challenged. For a young officer with exceptional skill and few connections, this upheaval was both a risk and an opportunity. France was soon embroiled in chaos, and Napoleon the outsider would find himself thrust into a position to prove his worth. A star ascending. The French Revolution and Siege of Toulon. Revolutionary fervor tore through the heart of France, shattering age-old institutions and creating a rare opening for Napoleon Bonaparte to seize his destiny. In Paris, the guillotine became a symbol of terror, with public executions becoming a daily spectacle. No one was spared. Men, women, even children were sent to their deaths on suspicion of treason. The September massacres of 1792 saw prisoners butchered by mobs, and the fall of the monarchy plunged the nation into chaos. In the countryside, peasants rose in revolt, only to be met with brutal repression. The revolution reshaped society, but for many it was an era of fear, suffering, and loss, forever altering the course of French history. While the revolution swept through France, Napoleon was just beginning his military career as a junior artillery officer. Fiercely committed to the study of war, he had struggled against the constraints of the old regime, where advancement depended on noble lineage and powerful connections. But now the revolution dismantled that old order, giving Napoleon the chance to rise. France suddenly needed leaders, and the aristocracy's grip on power weakened. The revolution's ideals of equality, fraternity, and liberty had opened doors for ambitious soldiers. This was a rare moment when skill and merit could outshine pedigree, a moment Napoleon was perfectly prepared to seize. As the revolution descended into the reign of terror, the young republic faced threats from within and without. European monarchies, fearing the spread of revolutionary fervor, formed coalitions to crush the fledgling French Republic. One of the most critical threats came in 1793 at the port of Toulon. It was a strategic Mediterranean city that had fallen into the hands of royalists who welcomed British forces to their aid. Toulon's fall threatened to give Britain a critical foothold in southern France and disrupt French control of the Mediterranean. For the newly established revolutionary government, Toulon became an urgent priority. This was Napoleon's defining opportunity. At just 24 years old, he was appointed commander of the Republican artillery during the siege of the city. It was a role that would allow him to showcase his technical skills and tactical imagination.